Paragraphs are the building blocks of writing. Paragraphs are to a piece of writing what bearing walls are to a house. They hold up the writing, they provide structure, and they provide solidity. They make the writing feel grounded. So paragraphs are worthwhile to study, and good paragraphs will immensely improve your writing. In fact, your writing is really just a collection of paragraphs. The word paragraph itself tells a part of the story. Para means to go beyond, and graph means to write. So the paragraph goes beyond the writing. In other words, it's a level above the writing itself, where things are organized and put together. If you look at the parchment on the slide, you'll see that there are columns of writing, but no paragraph indentations. So paragraphs were not part of the ancient world. And we just see columns and columns and columns of writing. In the medieval world, there were monasteries devoted entirely to copying material for distribution. So for example, if St. Thomas Aquinas gave a lecture in downtown London, someone there would be copying down what he's saying as quickly as possible, and then that information would be taken out to the monastery, and 20 or 30 monks would make copies of that so that the document would be distributed all over Europe. One copy to France, one copy to Paris, one copy to Rome, one copy to Vienna, and so on. So there was this distribution of information. One of the other things that was going on, as the monks were working, they were involved in making the manuscripts pretty. As you see the picture here, there's the flowers at the top and the illustrations at the bottom. Also, you see these blocks where there's a single letter, and those are capstones. And these were added in the material period to kind of indicate the beginning of a new topic. And so we have the beginnings of the concept of the paragraph, where paragraphs start a topic. After the birth of the printing press, many things were turned into printable copy, the most notable of which is the Bible. And here we have the King James Version of the Bible in 1652. But notice as you look at the picture that it's not really paragraphed, because every verse, Strunk and White write, a paragraph is a convenient unit. It serves all forms of literary work. As long as it holds together, a paragraph may be of any length, a single short sentence, or a passage of great duration. The key here is the phrase, as long as it holds together. That's the point of the paragraph. All of the ideas in the paragraph must be held together by an overarching concept or thought. Based on what I just said on the last slide, we might picture a paragraph as follows on this slide. The main idea holds together all the sub-ideas, and the strings link to the main idea, because the main idea overarches the whole sub-idea world. Nowadays, we have what I call the vertical paragraph, where the main idea is the heading of a list, and this then becomes a list of bullets, and all of the bullets have to relate to the main idea, and the main idea has to relate to the bullets. Unfortunately, too many writers put in bullets that don't fit with the main idea, which creates confusion. Here is the formal definition of a paragraph. A paragraph shows a change in speaker or perspective, tells the reader that all the sentences are thematically connected to a single thought, feeling, or action, and is indented or set off from the rest of the text to illustrate, through layout, that all the sentences in the paragraph are connected to its main idea. Here is the formal definition of a paragraph. A paragraph shows a change in speaker or perspective, tells the reader that all the sentences are thematically connected to a single thought, feeling, or action, and is indented or set off from the rest of the text to illustrate, through layout, that all the sentences in the paragraph are connected to its main idea. A familiar structure finds its way into the various activities for communication. For example, the first 17 bars of a jazz piece introduce the theme of the jazz piece, and then each instrument or each voice has its say and then finally concludes. In classical music, da-da-da-da introduces the theme, and then the rest of the symphony works out the implications of the theme. In much human activity, this is very common, and we see that in film, we see it in video, we see it in ordinary human communication. The structure looks like this. There's an introduction of the theme, and then there's elaboration of the theme, and then there's a conclusion. Paragraphs should and can follow this structure, with the introduction of the theme, the elaboration of the theme, or the conclusion. When I served in the Marine Corps, they explained to me the way they like to get presentations. And they have this little saying that I'll tell you right now, which is tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. And again, it's just like the other structure. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. Once again, some of these ideas evolve over time because they're efficient. And this is an efficient way to communicate. Here's a paragraph from the elements of style. Vigorous writing is concise. A sentence should contain no unnecessary words. A paragraph, no unnecessary sentences. For the same reason that a drawing should have no unnecessary lines, and a machine no unnecessary parts. This requires not that the writer make all his sentences short, or that he avoid all detail and treat his subjects only in outline, but that every word tell. Now in the next few slides we're going to work at this and see how this paragraph follows the pattern. Vigorous writing is concise, period. This sentence opens the paragraph. It is the announcement of the theme, or in the Marine Corps process, it's telling us what we're going to be told. We're going to be told about vigorous writing, and we're going to be told about a specific quality of vigorous writing, which is that it's concise. So we have vigorous writing is concise. Next we have the elaboration of the theme. Vigorous writing is concise. Now what does that really mean? So it is elaborated. A sentence should contain no unnecessary words, a paragraph no unnecessary sentences, for the same reason that a drawing should have no unnecessary lines, and a machine no unnecessary parts. This requires not that the writer make all his sentences short, or that he avoid all detail and treat his subjects only in outline, but that every word tell. So here's the elaboration. Now we begin to understand what being concise is, and what makes for vigorous writing. Now we've been told what we're going to be told, and we've been told the information. Now we're getting told what we have been told, or rather the conclusion. So, but that every word tell is the conclusion. Now do notice that the every word tell goes back to the beginning. Vigorous writing is concise when every word tells. And so the paragraph is closed because the conclusion fits with the beginning. If we look at the opening paragraph for The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker, a book I highly recommend to every business person because it is filled with nuggets of wisdom, we can make the same analysis. To be effective is the job of the executive. To effect and to execute are, after all, mere synonyms. Whether he works in a business or in a hospital, in a government agency or a labor union, in a university or in the army, the executive is, first of all, expected to get the right things done. and this is simply that it is expected to be effective. What we're going to be told, or the announcement of the theme, is the opening sentences. To be effective is the job of the executive. This means that I can expect this paragraph to deal with two issues: effectiveness and executives. So the theme is very clear. Then Peter Drucker presents the elaboration. To effect and to execute are, after all, mere synonyms. Whether he works in a business or in a hospital, in a government agency or in a labor union, in a university or in the army, the executive is. Here's the elaboration, the explanation of how the job of the executive is linked to effectiveness. Now comes the conclusion. First of all, the executive is expected to get the right things done. Here then is the definition, and we now know what the job of the executive is, and it links back to the beginning. Now notice here that the writer has put getting the right things done in italics, because the writer wants to emphasize that idea, because it's so important. And we have a sentence left over. This sentence is the link to the next idea. So this is something useful to do in your writing, is to link your ideas so that you take the reader by the hand and walk the reader from one point to another. So we can then see the link is to the idea that the effectiveness of the executive will be explored. These two examples, the Strunk and White paragraph and the Peter Drucker paragraph, illustrate the classic paragraph. In this slide, you can see the classic paragraph as it's laid out. First comes the paragraph main idea, and then the paragraph formator. The formator is the part of the paragraph where the writer explains to the reader how the information is organized. Then we have the elaboration of ideas, then we have the conclusion, and then the transition to the next paragraph. I highly recommend practicing to write these paragraphs this way and really get good at it, because the solid paragraphs will lead to solid writing. In my case, my sister, who is a national editor for a national magazine, called me up one day and said, "Carolus, your writing is improving. What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm working on writing good paragraphs." And there you have it. It really helps. Based on the picture of the paragraph with the main idea and the sub-ideas, it's logical to conclude that a paragraph should have two levels of thought. We have a proliferation of long paragraphs, which often contains as much as 7 or 9 levels, which makes them very hard to decode and tough to read. So we can conclude from the image that there are 2 levels, and that a paragraph should contain only 2 levels. This section will work on thinking this through, which is very important for us when we edit, because we create paragraphs. They may or may not have 2 levels, they may have only 1, or they may have 20, depending on how it evolves that morning or that afternoon when we're working. So we need a main and a subordinate level. That's what we're looking for. So we can conclude from the image that there are 2 levels, and that a paragraph should contain only 2 levels. This section will work on thinking this through, which is very important for us when we edit, because we create paragraphs. They may or may not have 2 levels, they may have only 1, or they may have 20, depending on how it evolves that morning or that afternoon when we're working. So we need a main and a subordinate level. That's what we're looking for.